you have those rookies out there first. And as of next Friday, 32 teams in camp. So from there, it is all systems go. Welcome into NFL Live. Jack Collins, Dan Graziano, two-time Super Bowl champ. Damien Woody, another Super Bowl champ over on the end, and Victor Cruz. I think we all know where we have to start the show, so let's not waste any time. We're directly into it. Today it was announced Tyreek Hill will not be suspended by the NFL after Hill was accused of assaulting his son. The league launched an investigation, and right around 10 a.m. this morning, our Adam Schefter reporting that the league could not find evidence that he did. But the case will remain open if further evidence emerges. So here is the NFL's statement today with regards to Tyreek Hill. The NFL said, similarly, based on the evidence presently available, the NFL cannot conclude that Mr. Hill violated the personal conduct policy. Accordingly, he may attend Kansas City's training camp and participate in all club activities. He has been and will continue to be subject to conditions set forth by the district court, Commissioner Goodell, and the Chiefs, which include clinical evaluation and therapeutic intervention. The Chiefs have now weighed in on all of this as well. Let's get to Kansas City. This is what the Chiefs had to say. Based on the information provided to us by the league, we have decided it is appropriate for Tyreek to return to the team at the start of training camp. The club fully supports the conditions for return laid out by the league and will continue to monitor any new developments in the case. We are glad to welcome Tyreek back to the team and look forward to the start of training camp next week. Okay, so now that we have all that information, let's get to Adam Schefter, who's been following this story closely for months now. Adam, how did the league come to this decision?
Jack, this has been a lengthy investigation from the NFL, which has found itself in the investigation business. And during the course of its investigation, the NFL never could find evidence that Tyreek Hill was basically guilty of essentially assaulting his 3-year-old son as he had been accused of doing. I think the longer the investigation went on, the more it became apparent to the NFL in its eyes that Tyreek Hill here did not essentially wound his son and was not guilty of some of the things that he had been accused of doing. I think the Chiefs organization felt as a whole that Tyreek Hill put himself in bad situations, but he did not break the arm of his 3-year-old son. And in that 11-minute audio tape that many people have heard these sounds of, where Tyreek Hill is essentially saying to his then fiancee, you need to be scared of me as well, using profane language, I think the NFL felt in listening to the full 11-minute tape of that sound that in its context, that comment does stand out. It does grab your attention. It is deeply disturbing. But if the NFL, in its opinion, listened to the whole tape and felt that in the context of it, that Tyreek Hill did nothing wrong. And this is a league, remember, Jack, that really has gone out of its way to discipline players from everything from smoking marijuana to deflating footballs to anything it could. And in this particular case, a league that has taken a hardline stance on so many different players with so many different issues over the years, decided here in one of the most deeply disturbing cases of all that Tyreek Hill is not guilty of what he's doing, and the league left open the right to go back and discipline him if further evidence emerges. So right now, Jack, Tyreek Hill will be at training camp, will be a full participant, is a full go for the upcoming season ahead.
So Adam, what do we expect to happen next year, or is it at this point done unless something further emerges?
Unless something further emerges, Tyreek Hill is in the free and clear at this particular point in time. As you mentioned, he will be at camp. And keep in mind, this is an organization that had banned him from attending off-season activities because the organization itself wanted to gather more information, as the NFL did as well. I think both sides came to the conclusion here, as much as it was looking for evidence that he did something wrong, it could not prove that conclusively in this case. I know there's a skeptical public out there, and with good reason, because so many times there are people involved in incidents like this that are so deeply disturbing. But in this case, the NFL determined that Tyreek Hill did nothing wrong.
Adam, we appreciate the information. We want to get to this, too, before we get back to you later on in the show, because Tyreek did respond on Twitter. He said, the last few months have been very difficult for me, especially as a father. The false allegations originally reported in March were highly publicized, involved the care of my son. I am grateful for so many things, grateful for so many people who have supported me during this challenging time. I fully respect and accept the NFL's decision. To the NFL, Commissioner Goodell, and everyone who assisted in this investigation, thank you for your time and for conducting a thorough investigation. I will not let you down. So, Damien, Woody, what is your reaction?
First, let me say that, with the league finding it inconclusive as far as the assault is concerned, everyone deserves a presumption of innocence. There's no question about that. My thoughts moving forward is clearly from the audio, he did threat his mother of his child. Okay, combine that with a pattern of Tyreek Hill in these type of incidences dating back to college. And so for me, what's disturbing is that there's nothing, no punishment at all in this particular situation. Compared to Ezekiel Elliott, who had 6 games, and I'm left scratching my head as to why can't the league be more transparent about how they got to this point? Because I'm sitting here and I'm just looking at everything, and like I said, there's a presumption of innocence that Tyreek Hill deserves in this particular case, but there are breadcrumbs along that's been going on along the way that make you think this dude doesn't get anything, but Ezekiel Elliott gets 6 games. So I just want some more transparency from the league and how they got to this particular situation, because that's a complaint, and Victor knows this. That's a complaint not only from the players, but I think the fans themselves in regards to how the league administers discipline.
So on the topic of transparency, the problem is, Adam said the league is in the investigation business. That's the problem. The NFL doesn't have subpoena power. It doesn't have the power to compel witness testimony. So to the extent to which it can even conduct one of these investigations is limited. And any evidence it finds, with the help of law enforcement, it may not be able to reveal to the public, because it may be confidential. It may be something law enforcement didn't want them to share. So there are all kinds of reasons that transparency is not going to happen in situations like this, especially when it comes to a case involving the welfare of a child. Those matters are even more closely guarded. But the issue is why is the league doing these investigations in the first place, and is it right for them to do it, or should they let the legal system take care of it? The one thing is, there's no more criminal case pending against Tyreek Hill. But Adam said, unless something further emerges in terms of evidence, what's going on, there's a hearing, proceeding in Kansas called a child in need of care proceeding. It's not a criminal proceeding, but it's to determine what's best for the welfare of the child. If something were to come out of that, like if the league were to find out a detail that supported the idea that he broke the personal conduct policy and required discipline, they're reserving the right to go back into this and say, okay, we found something out. But to this point, versus Ezekiel Elliott, they felt like they had evidence there. Whatever anybody wants to say, they felt like they had evidence there. They felt on this case that they didn't have evidence that was sufficient to warrant a violation of the personal conduct policy.
That's the only part that kind of, that I have questions about as a player. If I was a player, what's the barometer? Like, what makes one incident more severe than the other? How are you gauging this as a front office or as the NFL as they go and conduct these investigations? How do you decide which one is more severe than the other? How are you justifying a 6-game suspension for Ezekiel and 0-game suspension for Tyreek Hill when they both essentially were in, the news for something, putting the NFL, putting the Shield in a bad light? So that's the biggest thing for me as a player, or having been a player in that locker room, is how are you gauging this, NFL? How are you going about this business and gauging one against the other?
And that's the thing. It's case by case. They're not using past cases to inform current ones. But the problem is it's case by case. But each case doesn't come with an equivalent amount of supporting evidence or information. They might have had more cooperation from people on Ezekiel Elliott. They might have been able to find more information than they did on Tyreek Hill, or vice versa. So that's the problem with this. You can't equate one situation or another, because behind the scenes, when they're doing these investigations, so much rests on what they can get. And very often, it's very little.
Get the hell out of this business if you're the NFL,
probably
basically.
the answer.
I mean, that's really what it all comes down to. Listen, if you're the NFL, I think what's more important, the NFL needs to take this whole piece of the pie and outsource it somewhere else, okay? Because clearly, we're going to keep asking these questions again, because this is going to come up again with another player. And we're going to have the same type of questions again and again. So if I'm the NFL, outsource that somewhere else and just get back to what you do really well, which is market and putting on a good product for the fans.
And let the legal system take care of it and let them deem whatever they want to deem is the proper punishment for whatever the crime is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, far less important. I think we all understand that, but the reality, Tyreek Hill is going to be playing football. So we all got to understand that. What does he change most for Kansas City? I mean, obviously a talented player, else we wouldn't be talking about this like this.
It's huge. I mean, obviously a guy coming off a 1,400-yard plus receiving season, 12 touchdowns. I mean, a huge weapon for Mahomes. And if Mahomes is going to have that 50-touchdown caliber type of season that we all know he can have, obviously coming off a 50-touchdown season, he's going to need Tyreek Hill, and he's going to need him to continue to play at a high level. And having him back and having him there for training camp and not missing a substantial amount of games or whatever the case may be is huge for that team to continue to build and continue to go through the things that they want to go through in order to get to that pinnacle, and that's the Super Bowl.
You want me to tell you what it means? He has something that you can't teach. Speed. I don't know. You can evict. We all talk, you ask players, ask teams. He might be the one player that scares teams the most out of any offensive player in the league because he has something that, quite frankly, I don't know if there's any other player that can really touch him as far as his speed and explosiveness. And it scares teams to death. So bringing him back into the mix for the Kansas City Chiefs puts him right back in the fold to try to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
So we will be back to Hill with Adam Schefter later in the show, but 31 other teams with Super Bowl dreams as well. We're getting to all of them today. We're going to hit every training camp around the league. Our NFL Nation reporters are on the scene gathering every inch of information. So let's start in the AFC East, get our camp pass going with Jets reporter